This is the Garmin Edge 1050. After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I've noticed so far. I've used a few bike computers over the years, including older Garmin Edge units, and the Edge 1050 feels different right away because of the screen. The display is bright, colorful, and easy to read outside. That was the thing I noticed the most during normal rides. On sunny roads, I did not have to squint as much or tilt the unit around to see the map. The screen is 3.5 inches, so it is not a tiny device. It takes up real space on the bars. If I were building a very clean race setup, I would notice the size and weight. It weighs about 161 grams, and it feels solid in the hand, but that also means it is not the lightest thing to hang off the front of a bike. The touch screen feels quick most of the time. Swiping between pages, moving around the map, and changing settings all felt smooth to me. Compared with older Edge computers I've used, this one feels less slow when I'm zooming in on a route or trying to check a turn while riding. Setup was easy for me. I already had Garmin sensors and profiles, so a lot of my stuff came over without much work. My heart rate strap, power meter, speed sensor, electronic shifting, and radar paired without any drama. That part matters because I do not want to spend half an hour before a ride fixing sensor issues. The storage is also generous. It has 64 gigabytes inside, and that gives me room for maps and routes without thinking about it too much. I like that I can handle map updates over Wi-Fi. I do not always want to plug into a computer just to update maps, so doing it directly on the unit is convenient. Navigation is one of the main reasons I would look at this model. The map is easier to read than on older Garmin units I've used. Streets, trails, turns, and data fields are clearer. When I missed a turn, rerouting was quick enough that I did not feel stuck waiting on it. It gave me a new way back to the route without making the ride feel interrupted. The speaker is something I did not expect to care about as much as I did. It can give spoken turn prompts, and I found that helpful. I still look down at the map sometimes, but I do not have to stare at it as often. The alerts are easier to notice too, especially with radar. The digital bike bell is also useful in certain places. I would not say it replaces a loud physical bell for every situation, but it works well enough for paths and slower areas. The road hazard alerts are interesting. I like the idea of being warned about things like potholes or other problems ahead. In practice, it depends on whether other riders are using it and reporting things in the area. When it works, it feels useful. I would not buy the device only for that feature, but I do like having it. Battery life is where I had to adjust my expectations. With multi-band GPS, navigation, sensors, and auto brightness, I saw the battery drop at a noticeable pace. For my normal rides, it was fine.
For a long day ride, it was still fine.
But if I were doing multi-day riding or very long endurance events, I would think carefully. Older models like the Edge 1040 can last longer, and that matters if charging is not easy. I did get better battery life by turning brightness down manually. The screen is bright enough that I did not need it blasting all the time. Around 2/3 brightness was still very readable for me in many conditions. At night, I actually found auto brightness too bright sometimes. Dark mode helps, but maps can be harder to read that way. One thing that bothered me is the mount fit. The back mount position sits a little differently than some older Garmin units. On one of my out-front mounts, the device sat close to the stem hardware. It worked better with the included mount, but if you already have a favorite mount, I would check the fit before assuming it will be fine. The touch screen is good in rain from what I experienced. I did not get a bunch of random touches from water on the screen. That was nice. Cold weather was a different story. When temperatures got close to freezing, the touch response felt worse. With thicker gloves, it was not fun. If I rode in cold weather all the time, I would probably prefer something with more button control. I also had a few software moments that were annoying. One ride did not sync right away, and I had to restart things before it showed up properly. I have also seen ride computers freeze or reboot before, so this is not unique to this model, but at this price range, I still notice it. If you depend on live tracking or segments during every ride, that kind of thing can be frustrating. Compare with something like a Wahoo, the Garmin gives me more mapping detail and more settings to play with. The trade-off is that Garmin can feel busier. There are more menus, more options, and more little features to learn. Compared with the Edge 1040, the Edge 1050 feels nicer to look at and quicker to use, but the battery life is not as strong. The Garmin Pay feature is useful in a simple way. I do not always use it, but for a quick stop where I do not want to dig out a card, it is handy. I still usually carry my phone, so it is not a huge selling point for me, but it is nice to have. The rider this makes sense for is someone who cares a lot about maps, route changes, screen readability, and sensor data. If I were riding new roads often, doing group rides, using radar, and following routes every week, I would get a lot out of it. If I mostly rode short local loops and only needed speed, distance, and heart rate, this would be more than I need. A smaller and cheaper bike computer would make more sense. My honest take is that the Garmin Edge 1050 is very nice to use day to day, especially because of the screen and navigation. It is not the one I would pick for every rider. The size, battery life, mount fit, and cold weather touchscreen are things I would think about before buying. If you have questions about anything I didn't cover, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer based on my own use. Thank you for watching.